you don't know, if you're an adult and you don't know whether you've had a good night's sleep or not, and you need a watch to tell you whether you do, you are in serious trouble.
I actually think people that are able to self-reflect quickly and say, my bad, I find them to be the most sexy people
Oh,
because the more you take accountability, the more you work on yourself, the more you start to value your own power.
right, we are back for our afternoon peppermint tea chat.
I have tea too, but
Yeah, oh,
Southern tea,
lovely.
Southern
Well, I've
tea.
been picking my own leaves, you see. So, and we're going to be talking about something that I think is really important for every single person watching this, and we're all going to have different views. Trigger alert, everyone's going to be in a different place on this, but we're going to be talking about, is the system really broken? Why are we trying to fix a broken system? And most importantly, well, how can we recreate rather than just trying to fix something that, quite frankly, in my opinion, was never a broken system, is performing exactly as it was designed to perform, which is to control us all. So before we dive deep into that, how are you doing, Brice?
I'm so good. And yes, you guys, I made sure that I had my own tea. Now, I don't have any ice. I know the Southerners are going to be mad. We were out of ice. So it's cold though. Catherine, here in the South, we don't drink hot tea. We drink cold tea. Every house has got a pitcher, usually of sweet tea, which is loaded with sugar. This is unsweet tea though, but it's all cold here. We only drink cold tea in the South because it's hot
Oh,
as hell outside. So, but you know what? When I was a little girl, when you show me your tea leaves, I used to go, my mom's mom, I used to go pick the tea leaves. That
oh,
was my
cool.
job as a little kid. When she would be making dinner, she would have me go outside. That I felt like a big kid, like I was a big grown up. I got to go pick the tea leaves. I
Oh,
mean, I probably
wow.
all the
We
wrong
don't
way.
we don't have sort of normal tea growing here, but here I've got nettle and three different types of mint, so it's lovely. But well, I want to just discuss this today, Bryce, because I've been seeing, obviously we've got so much going on at the moment, and we've got the Trump and the mask, and we've got all sorts of things happening in the UK. They're looking at bringing in a digital ID again. Everywhere you look, where you're watching from, I was watching something really interesting about the I country that we can't say too early in the video, and there's so much going on. And in one respect, we talk about it all being a distraction, but in another respect, these things, or many of them, are actually happening. It's a bit like a false flag, just because a false flag doesn't mean that people aren't taken off the planet. It just means who's arranged it isn't who you think it is. So where do you sit about, these things, that everything that's happening at the moment, that are major discussions that are, I would call energy harvesting, all our energy, all our attention, putting us, anyone who looks at the Hawkins vibrational scale of consciousness, putting us right back down into those fear, the anger, the reactivity. Where do we kick off this? It's such a biggie.
I think it's everything. It's all programmed to control us, even from the side of the truthers. It's all, and Catherine, you and I have been screaming this for years now, that the truther community is just as controlled as the normies. It is
Yeah.
controlled opposition,
Mhm.
and it is all designed to enslave us. We've learned that from the Cassiopeans, that the Lizzies, we'll call them. I like how they call them the Lizzies because that's good for our algorithms too. You guys, if you think about it, you know what we're talking about when we say Lizzies. They this is all free will, right? But this gets complicated because if we consent to being controlled, we're being controlled. And so they'll do things to trigger our fear, to trigger our dopamine, to trigger our insecurities in order to cling to a false reality, but we're choosing that. We're making the choice. And that was always my problem with like the whole white hat are in charge, because I don't want anybody, if I don't know who you are, I don't want you in charge of my life. I'm not going to give you my power. I'm not going to give you but it's a nice fairy tale, right? To believe that somebody's going to come in and take care of us and all these things are just distractions when literally that's a distraction too, right? And the system isn't broken. It's working exactly how it was designed to work. Order through chaos, right?
Oh, it's so true. And when you were saying about the fairy tales, I mean, most of us have grown up with the fairy tales where the prince rides in on his white horse to save you, and or some variation of it. And I think it's so appealing. So when we're saying this, we completely get the appeal. It's escapism. Escapism is a really recognized way of dealing with stress. In animals, we'd call it displacement behavior. So if you've got a really stressed dog, it might start over grooming itself or start doing other behaviors that are really inappropriate to its situation to try and distract itself from having to deal with what's going on in its life. And throughout history, I always laugh when I say this because we just like we know. I mean, I so want to keep wanting to come back to Tartaria and everything and these buildings and the fact that I laughed at the fact that I was taught at school that Egyptian pyramids were to just have the burial chamber.
Burials, that's all they
Yeah.
are.
And my picture's going a bit funny for me, so I'm hoping our internet connection's all right. But I think so. Whereas we're talking about this, it's not that we don't understand it, but it's about we do actually have a lot more choice than we think we do. So a classic example is people are saying, well, I haven't got any choice in terms of the fact that there's all these riots going on in LA, or the fact that they're bringing in digital passports to the UK. But I mean, we've been talking about bringing the digital passports for 5 years. Now, it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it won't happen, but there's no point me worrying about it unless I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah. No, and that we were talking offline, and I'm gonna hold on one second, Catherine. Let me show this book to people. I'm actually glad. I usually give my books away after we have these little, I'm sure you have them in the UK, those little boxes you can drop books in for people to read. So I usually take my books and drop them, but I haven't. I just finished this book called The
Yeah.
Women. Somebody had given me this book. I put off reading it for a while because I'm typically not super interested in Vietnam, and it takes place over the Vietnam War, but it is an incredible book. I cried through this book. It gave me a lot of perspective on what my parents lived through as young adults. My dad missed the draft by like 2 years, which might not seem like a lot, but I guarantee you, as my father was getting closer to the age of 18 and that war would kept going on, my grandparents were probably very stressed.
Yeah.
And it goes through this, and reading this book really brought it. And we say this a lot. Like, we think for some reason, Catherine, and our collectively, people think this is like the worst it's ever been in the world.
I know.
It's not. It's not, guys.
And that doesn't, I think the thing is when we say things like this, and I'm talking about the royal we, as we say over here, we're not just talking about Brice and I saying these things. People often immediately jump to defensiveness. Oh, you don't know what my life's like. You don't know what we've been through, and you don't know what we've been through. So this is always the case, is we can every single person watching this will have been through some trauma in various different degrees. And of course, some people have been through a lot more than others. But the fact of the matter is anyone who's sitting here watching this, we are in the wealthiest of most of the planet, because most of the planet haven't got the ability to sit there during a day or during an evening and watch or interact with things like this. And I think I'm really, really aware now of how, and I fall for it a lot, how easy it is to collect our energy and distract us and get us talking about these different things and everything. I mean, I saw Candace Owen posting and I laughed out loud, literally, because it was like Elon Musk posting on X about, I regret some of the things that I said about Trump, and Candace Owen said, well, what bit did you regret? Because there's
the list is
millions
long.
of comments. Did you regret saying that he was on the Epstein list because you were lying? Or did you regret saying he was on the Epstein list because you were telling the truth?
Yeah.
The thing is, it's like when you look through and you spend a little bit of time looking through the comments, it's so fascinating to see. It's so easy to get us humans to argue about the wrong issue. It's
I know.
manipulate us. It's hysterical.
You know what song got stuck in my head, Catherine? We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Can I share a screen? Because I've got the lyrics here. Most people know the lyrics. I mean, Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, South Pacific, Walter Winchell, Joe DiMaggio, Joe McCarthy, Richard Nick. I mean, we know this song, guys. What is this?
Yeah.
Is literally, this is the way the world works. This is the
Wow, my God, I've just seen, I've never looked at all those lyrics before.
yeah, it's I mean,
Wow.
it's all the stuff. I mean, a lot of this was before I was even born. North Korea, South Korea. My grandfather, my mom's mom, was a medic in the Korean War. Strom Thurmond, who was the longest running senator here in the United States, still holds that title. He's from South Carolina. That's Strom Thurmond was my grandmother's cousin. He got my grandfather out of the Korean War early, so my grandfather could finish medical school. I mean, Marilyn Monroe, Rosenhauer, HBOMB, Sugar Ray. I don't want to say some of these words because,
Disneyland's on there,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Eisenhower, England's got a new queen.
yeah,
Um, Joseph Stalin. Look at all these. I mean, communist bloc, rock, well, but then you got rock around the clock. Like the culture wars during some of the most brutal times of human. I mean, I was telling you, Catherine, when my mother was born in what, 1956. So I was telling you that, she talked about, and I know a lot of American, especially around my age, you'll remember your parents. Catherine, you knew about this, even though this didn't affect England, but they were afraid of the Bay of Pigs. Now we have to be
yeah.
careful about the words that was a BOMB, that Cuba, this was Kennedy, and where Cuba was allegedly going to NUKE the United States. So my mother, as a small child, they would run these drills where they would have to hide under the desk, which, like, what's that going to do? But the fear my mother had of that, the race riots. I was telling Catherine a story offline about my mother her life being threatened as a little girl. And I won't go but she has a very distinct memory of that terror during, and so we think that we're the first generation to like go through, and it's like, no, this is history. Einstein, James Dean, Booklet's Got a Winning Team, Davy Crockett, Peter Pan, Elvis Presley, Disneyland, Barb at Budapest, Alabama Cruise Chest, Princess Grace, Peyton Place, Trumbull in the Suez. This is all. I mean, this is crazy. It's right. I mean, I know some of these lyrics just from the song, but if you really look at, it's just a list of things. We can see these words and we know what he's referring to.
Yeah, birth control's on there, Reagan. I mean, that's so brilliant. I think we all need to go and really dive deep into those words. But one of the things that, reforming, there's a big difference between trying to break that you get to a stage, if something's broken in your house, most people will make a decision. Look, is this something I can repair and reuse, or is it beyond the point of repair, in which case I need to get a new one? And I think that analogy is really clear. And there are a lot of people that are going out and stepping outside the system. And we can find so many reasons for any areas of our life why we can't do something. And we know that it's a human condition that most people do not make significant change until they're forced to.
Yeah.
It's just part and parcel for how most of us actually live. But we do have the choice. If we were to sit there and be really honest, most people could sit here and sort of say, we saw it during the pandemic. Everyone says I didn't have any choice to get there, what, because I'd have lost my job. But a lot of people did choose to lose their job. So you did have a choice. And there's always consequences of every choice. And there's consequences in both directions. So yes, the people that chose to get booted out of their jobs suffered a lot of consequences, mainly financial, a lot of other stigmas to go with it. And it was very difficult for most people because often the family weren't in agreement about the decision to take. But equally, the people that chose not to leave their jobs and go along with it have faced some really severe consequences of it.
Yeah.
So I think when we're looking at this situation, of course, there's so much in the news that can grab our attention. But for me, and I'd love your opinion, Brice, it's a bit like there's a big difference between going on a protest energetically to going on a freedom march. There's a very different energy behind it.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to weigh out. So we live in a density where there is action and reaction, consequences, that's karma, cause and effect. That's what I think people misunderstand karma in the West. That's all it is just cause and effect. That's all it is. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That is karma, right? And so you have to figure out and I think that's one thing too, Catherine. I was actually we're in an epidemic of like narcissism for some reason.
Yeah,
Everybody's entitled. I look back at like my childhood and it's amazing how quickly this happened. Because when I was a child, if you didn't win at a sports event, you didn't win.
yeah.
Now everybody gets participation trophies. If I did something wrong as a child, I got in trouble. Now parents treat it like so these we're growing up in this environment now where nobody's taking accountability. Nobody's got the integrity anymore to hold their own self-governance. And I think that's been a slow boil. I think what's happened too is, we know an awful lot about trauma now and awful lot about stress and anxiety, but the powers that be have taken it too far to the point where people don't want to experience any discomfort. They don't want to be accountable to their choices. We were in follow through. We were talking about this before we signed on, Catherine, about how this consistency, like people after decades of mistreating their health, decide they want to course correct, and then they get upset when it's not course corrected one day or 1 month. That it
Oh, I
takes
had someone this week say to me, they've had a 25-year condition and they've started down the natural route to make some changes. And they're like, 2 weeks in, they're like, well, I haven't noticed any changes yet. And you're like, I don't know how many times we have to have this situation. People, they say they don't want big pharma, but they want everything to work like in a flash, like put a pill, symptoms go. Take that as Ozempic, you start dropping weight. The fact that it's growing God knows what in your body and destroying everything, working properly. This we have to grow up and start taking some responsibility, however difficult it might be. And to me, I think there's a huge difference between blaming yourself and taking responsibility. We're not saying to sit there and just beat yourself up and give yourself a hard time and make yourself miserable. I honestly laugh about it, Brice. I sit there and I gave an example to you. Like, I know when I meditate in the morning, first thing, it makes a huge difference to my life. I've done it enough stages in my life to know that it works, and yet I'm not doing that at the moment. So whose fault's that? It's mine. If I
yeah,
want something to change, I need to do something different. It's not the meditation teacher's fault.
no. I'm the same way with journaling, physically journaling. Times of my life where I consistently made myself write down every evening and journal about my day and my feelings. My life has been way better. And I know that, but I'll still, I've got the exercise down. I can do
Yeah.
that. I've got that. I've got the eating down. I can do that. I'm very clean and organized, but that's the one thing that I know. I even wrote down in my gratitude journal this morning, the 5-minute journal, what would 3 things today to and I put journal to make sure that I would actually sit down tonight and journal, even if it's one paragraph where I just write down what I did today. I know that is, but for some reason, that's where I really have to really work and discipline myself to do that. So, but that's my fault. That's my fault.
Yeah, exactly. The tools exist, we know about it. And we're not meant to be perfect. I mean, no one wants to be a perfect Peter, and certainly no one wants to live with a perfect Peter. Although I do call my pony Romeo perfect Peter, because to me he is.
Robbie's pretty perfect
I
too.
think, we know enough now to know that the medical system, we know the education system. I mean, the education system is a classic example. I've had 2 kids. I did send them to school. Would I do it differently now? Yes, I would, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. At the time, I did what I thought was best, and thank goodness, so far they've turned out really well. But I see people all the time criticizing the education system and saying, schools should be teaching children how to grow food. Well, parents should teach children how to grow food. And then people come back and say, well, not everyone has responsible parents. So well, there was a brilliant video doing the rounds about, it was bizarre that I sent it to our mutual friend David in Australia today. And it was a TikTok video, which I don't watch. I only watch the ones that people send me. And it was a Chinese hospital, and this Australian couple, there was a Chinese wife and an Australian husband, and they'd gone on holiday to China from Australia. He'd been waiting for like 18 months for an MRI scan for a medical condition. They got to China, and the wife was like, oh, I'm just going to go along to the hospital, see what it is. It was unbelievable. They went in there, they paid like $100, got an MRI scan, and then machines that print it all off the same day. And then you walk along on the same day and get a consultant to look at it for $100. I mean, in China, in this one place in China, I'm not saying everywhere's like that, but we're so caught in the fact that we can't break the system, we can't do something different. We're forgetting to look for the examples of what is working. You know, people talk about China in such a negative way, and there's some horrific things I think happening there, but equally, there's some really amazing things happening there. So why aren't we putting our effort on what we want to take, the good bits from all the different areas across the globe?
It's interesting, as you're saying with medical too. I think we've been conditioned as well, especially here in the United States, that we're constantly having to go to the doctor for a checkup, for this,
We
for
don't
that.
do this in the UK. I couldn't believe it.
Oh,
We just
it's
never do it.
crazy. Well, I don't do it. Let me tell you something. This might be TMI, guys, but I'm just going to be very vulnerable. I am 42 years old. I have never had a pap smear, nor
No.
will I. Nor will I. I will not have a mammogram. No, no, sir,
No.
not going to do it. I don't need someone poking around in my body. I think I have taken enough accountability for myself physically that if I feel like something is wrong, I think I'm very attuned to the hard work I've done for 19 years working on myself, that I think I'm going to notice if something is wrong in my body. But it's like people become, and I think that's part of the problem and why the system has been so
So
clever
clever.
at making you think that you have to go to the doctor like what, once a year for a checkup, every 6 months for blood work, all these kind of things. Why?
Well,
Aren't
I'm so pleased you raised this because this is a classic example where when we grow up with something in our society, we think that's normal and across the globe. So in the UK, we've got the National Health Service. Great if you get run over by a bus, but no alternative care really in there at all. But we never. So I'm listening to all these health podcasts and they're talking about when you go to the doctors and you get this checked. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We never do that in the
you
UK.
know people?
We
I don't. My
never,
boyfriend
ever. I
does.
mean, I never have blood tests. I never go to the
No,
doctor
never. I don't.
unless
Why would I need a blood test if nothing's wrong? Like
it's
blood tests.
really interesting because I'm sitting there listening to all these American health podcasts and I'm like, what are you all talking about? They're all just quoting their numbers for this. And I'm like, we just do not do that in the UK. Now, I'm not saying that's we're better in the UK. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it's like when people say to me, I eat a really healthy breakfast. Well, what we eat in the UK for breakfast, which generally is not healthy at all, you go to Finland and they're eating smoked cheeses and smoked fishes.
Yeah.
So we're so used to the culture. You know, that's why when someone says diabetes runs in my family, the joke is no, no one runs in your family.
Yeah.
That's why
Well,
you've all
thank.
got diabetes. Because we're so used to we think our normal is normal and it's not. And
It's
it
not.
hasn't been for a long while.
And that is the number one, I think, why people get duped into following. They think that if they, in America, if you don't go to the doctor like every 6 months and you're being irresponsible, in my opinion, if you're going to the doctor you're being irresponsible. That's my opinion. I feel like you need to be able, we've sold ourselves little by little. We've sold our sovereignty little by little. Like I don't need a doctor to tell me that everything's fine because I feel at 42. I have no problem running 7 miles. If you need me to go run 7 miles, I'll do it. No problem. Because I'm taking care of myself. I know. I feel like you can look at people's, and that's the thing too, Catherine. Even in this freaking truther world, you have people selling these like grifting, selling these programs to help
Yeah,
you get better. They look like shit. And can you not
completely.
like they look like they're alcoholics and they're so why are you buying a program from them just because they're sitting on your screen saying, hey,
Because
this
they're
is
good salespeople. It is absolutely hysterical. In the UK, the veterinary system's very much like you describe in America because we get our healthcare for free, and there's downsides to that because we don't get the choice to do a
yeah,
naturopath or a homeopath. But we're not used to paying for medical, so you only go when you really need it. But for our
right.
vet animals, we're encouraged to go along for annual vaccines. But there's
Yeah,
now wellness clinics where you go and weigh your dog. If you can't look at yourself or your dog and know you're overweight, it's like people that wear the watches to track their sleep at night. I'm like,
yeah,
pumping yourself with EMFs. If you don't know, if you're an adult and you don't know whether you've had a good night's sleep or not, and you need a watch to tell you whether you do, you are in serious trouble. And yet we've been sold by the alternative community that everyone needs these gadgets to be able to track themselves. What happened to, I know whether I'm put on weight because I can't get into my favorite jeans. It's that,
Yeah, right. It's so funny. Again, this might be TMI, but like with my cycle every month, I know that one ovary is gonna give me worse PMS than the other. It's like every single month, my boobs are way more sore, and I just know that's how my body works. I don't need somebody to track my actual period. I
yeah,
know that I can feel it. And that is one area, Catherine, where I think God just really, for me and probably for you too, just certain circumstances in life where I was given a solid, where I started really studying my body without even being aware until I became aware of.
yeah.
And actually, there's the vet that I work with in India that helps us with the dogs when we rescue the dogs, helps us get them ready, get their passports, all that kind of stuff. He's the funniest guy. In his clinic, there's by the scales for the dogs, it says if your dog is overweight, you're not exercising enough.
Exactly.
And
That's
I
so
love it.
true.
I'm like that. It's your responsibility. It is you know, when we talk about free will, free choice, a lot of times animals, the Cassiopeans go back and forth with this because some animals weren't given the free will choice to be in captivity, but once they are in captivity, once you've like with Ravi, once he was rescued, he became our responsibility.
Yeah.
It became our responsibility to nurture him and take care of him. It is my responsibility every day that I can, weather permitting, it's not because it's been raining here, poor Robbie, it's been raining here, to take him on a long walk. Can't say that word. He'll start barking. But that might be a trigger word for your dogs too. I don't want to.
So they're actually they've had their really long walk. And it's so true. And I've just written a post for my Instagram on this to sort of say, because I get told the whole time, I don't know if you get told this, Brice, with your yoga practice, I get told the whole time that, oh my goodness, you're sacrificing so much with all the animals you've got. So I actually looked up the word sacrifice to see what it actually meant. And it's not how we get to, I mean, obviously you've got HUMAN, sacrifice, which is one use of the word, but really it's an upgrade. It's
Yeah.
basically means to upgrade your life in a lot of ways. And we use it as a negative connotation, but if we set up our lifestyles to serve us, it's so much easier. So I'm quite lucky. I live in the middle of nowhere, so we've got no shops near us, so I can't get any food delivered. So I've got no temptation. So I'm really grateful for that because I do like my food. And if it was made easier for me, I'd need a lot more willpower. But if I don't buy junk food, then there's no way of me getting it because it's not in the house and I've got nothing nearby. But all of us will have our different challenges,
Yeah.
we'll have, so some people will live in the city like you do, where you can get anything you want probably at the click of a finger. So you're
Yeah.
going to need a lot more discipline or knowledge or willpower, whatever you works for you to do that. So all of our lifestyles have got different pros and cons, but it works really well to set yourself up to make it so you're not completely reliant on your willpower all the time.
And even like the sacrificing time for like that's my choice was to take care of this. I love it. I love it's fun for us. We are encouraged. We go and find different trails and different things to do because Ravi needs to go on a WALK. And so we make that fun for us as well. And sometimes when it's just me,
Biggest
like if
gift they can give us, isn't it?
oh yeah, we explore. I've got the Rotananda app that was big a couple of years ago. I don't know if you've heard of this, Catherine. It's make sure I'm saying it right. It's the app. It you put in like different like prompts like creepy or mysterious, and you give it a radius, and it finds something that's creepy or
What's that
mysterious.
called? I don't know if we get that over here.
Um, Randonautica. Actually, I think you do because it's set in kilometers. I had to change it to Randonautica. I just pulled it up. Randonautica.
Okay.
They made there's some
We
like
don't use kilometers. Everyone always says that
oh
kilometers.
you
We
don't
don't use kilometers in the UK. We're still on miles. But
the mile I had to
Europe use kilometers, but we don't in the UK.
so you can't see my address, but you can kind of if you can see where it just shows where my
Yeah.
house is. It doesn't give an address. So I have it set at like a 2 to 3 mile radius, and so I'll put in like I'll hit start and I'll put in like creepy, mysterious. You can put in like unaliving if there was like an unaliving event that'll take you to like the location of where it happened. I
I
mean,
wouldn't be putting any of those. I'd be putting
people
some
put in
goals.
I So people put in, like, one person showed a video, they put in rainbow, and it took them literally to a mural of a rainbow in the city. And so
Wow.
we got that app and we've been using it, and we'll find little places, little, because when you live in I know every nook and cranny of Atlanta, but
Yeah.
with this app, I'm finding different locations and learning more about the city too. It's fun. We do it down in Florida. That's a trigger word for dog as well. And actually I've even talked to Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress, about taking it up to the mountains where the cryptids are and
Yeah.
doing stuff with the app. And people could say, "Oh, the government's just tracking you." Listen, if we're doing a fun 2 mile, 3 mile walk in Atlanta looking for a mural of a rainbow, I don't think the government's too
Well,
invested.
they're tracking us every time we
Yeah,
go. We have a phone with us anyway. So if you
yeah,
and again, that's a different choice that different people make. I mean, I tend to take because I walk in the middle of nowhere on my own in the woods and things, and I don't know what good a phone's going to do me, quite frankly. But I'm in the habit of taking them with me.
yeah.
But a lot of my friends don't take their phones with them at all, and there's pros and cons of each. But I think going back to the sort of distraction side of things, and are we really playing into their whole, the system is designed to keep us trapped, and are we actually going to really start making changes in our own lives to sort of say, I'm not going to focus, I'm not going to engage in that gossip, I'm not going to, because we're so fickle anyway. I mean, I was saying to you the other day, and this is, Brice and I are not pretending we've got it all sorted by any stretch of imagination. No one, a few weeks ago, everyone was talking about the Diddy trial. Now, no one's talking about the Diddy
Fun.
trial.
Now the
But
riots here in America. Yeah.
hi, everyone, it's Catherine here. And before I dive into today's episode, I want to really quickly share something that's so important to me. I love hosting this podcast because it allows us all to explore those big questions, challenge our programming, and uncover the natural truths that truly empower us. But did you know my real passion's working one on one with animals and people, helping you or your animal cut through the noise, find the root cause of imbalances, stress, illnesses, or really just create a personalized plan that actually works for you. So whether you're here for your own healing or you're a dedicated animal guardian, wanting the very best for your dog, cat, horse, any four-legged or scaled or winged companion, I'm here for you both. I work with animals and humans, but I especially love helping the animals thrive. That is my real happy place. So my recharge and reset consultations and online courses are packed with practical tools, printable resources, lifelong access, and the main thing is you'll never feel alone on this journey. And they work. Just head over to my website and check out the testimonials. So if you're really ready to take action and not just listen, head over to CatherineEdwards.life, that's Catherine with the C and .life at the end, and explore my courses and consults. Or if you want to, book a free 15-minute chat to see if I can help. Because it's really important we stop outsourcing our health, really look after our animal companions better than before, and start leading by example. Now back to the podcast. Thank
I
you.
think I have taken enough accountability for myself physically.
It's the whole TikTok. The news has been like that for everything. Concentrate on this and then concentrate on that and concentrate on that without letting anyone deep dive and go into any of them properly. And that's a deliberate, because when
Oh, yeah.
there's too much choice for you, there's loads and loads of studies that show that when there's too much choice in the supermarket, you're not going to eat healthily. Too much choice is a stressor, and they're giving us too much to be stressed and distracted with, which means that they can just get along and do whatever they want. But there are a lot of people that are outside the system. I mean, I don't know anything about this, so correct me if I'm wrong, Brice, but you've got the Amish community and things there. There's a lot of communities that have been living outside, largely outside the system
They're
forever,
the healthiest.
and
Their kids
getting
are the
on
healthiest.
with their own things. Now, I haven't lived in there, so don't shoot me when I'm, saying missing something really important that I should know about them. But there's every single one of our countries, there will be communities that have very successfully been largely, not completely, but largely living outside the system for a long while. So if we want it bad enough, we can change.
And that's the Amish and the Mennonites. They have a religious order, but there are people in Appalachia that go off the grid all the time.
Yeah.
It's up the road from me. I mean, they'll be a part of this. I mean, they'll still be registered. They'll go do their voting. They'll go do all sort whatever, but they're not getting involved in some
Yeah.
of the trifle. You know, it's interesting. You're talking about the news in Ayurveda. It's called Vata derangement. So Vata is air, so cerebral. So too much anxiety is Vata. Cities are very Vata, a lot of chi, a lot of Vata in its proper placement is intelligence. But if you take it too far, goes into derangement. And so they're creating by this flashiness of the news. When I was a kid, there was no 24-hour news.
No.
It came on in the morning and the evening. That was it. That was it. And so things were calmer, right? Like there are riots happening in LA right now. We all know that. Well, what am I in Atlanta, Georgia going to do about that? What's Catherine in Atlanta like? We can be warned that it might come to our cities, but if it's not here, it's not here. We, as my mother used to say growing up, we cross that bridge when we come to it. And it is about choice. I'm telling you guys, I've gone 42 years without a pap smear. I'm totally fine. Totally fine.
Absolutely. And I think also, it's very tempting because it's a natural survival instinct to be drawn into the fear porn. So it's not, again, none of this is about shaming any of us because we're including ourselves in this conversation. It's about when you recognize things, we've all got the choice to turn off the computer, and everyone will comment now, well, I'm turning you off now. Good. Turn me off, go out for a walk, tend your garden, look after your neighbor. They have in Japanese word ikigai, and it's about having a purpose greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And the thing is, most of us realize that, our brain uses over 70% of our energy. And we all understand, the people that are watching you and I, that, we understand we're all energy, and that energy is a resource that the dark side can use. So we want to stop handing them that energy as much as we possibly can. And we have to consent to hand them their energy by building into their drama. Now, we're not talking about if you're in a war torn area, we're not talking about those people at all. We're talking about, like you said, you in Atlanta worrying about the riots in California, or me in the UK, just spending all day worrying about what's happening in Palestine. You can be empathetic, and as you say, you can have enough knowledge to sort of be warned without handing all your energy away, because if you are, you're just literally giving them exactly what they want. And I was talking about some examples with, it makes me absolutely laugh in the worst possible way. I think I've mentioned to people before, I often laugh in sort of trauma, you know, not laughing from a happy laugh, when I see people in the natural health world promoting certain big pharma products. Like, oh, we've got, everything's a parasite. Let's use this for a parasite. Everyone's using methylene blue. Let's do this. And you're like, oh my God, they've done such a good job on you. 2 years ago, you were fighting against pharmaceutical products and not knowing what's in them, and now you're doing their work for them. So we've just got to be careful, because it's very easy with the marketing tools, with AI, with the all the different platforms we're exposed to. It's so easy to think we're in control of our decisions when really we're not. We're being brainwashed all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with food, do you need 3 meals a day? Some people need 5 meals a day. Some people
Yeah,
need two. Are you just eating because you've been told you need to eat?
good point.
It's like I think that are you eating, one of what was is that book Skinny Vegan that came out like 20 years ago? Was that the book it was called?
I haven't read
It
that.
was it was hysterical. It was a funny book, but they talked about no one dies of protein deficiency. Like,
Exactly.
what are you talking about? Like that's not a thing. You can get like so people, we get a lot of pushback for our decision to not eat animals. That's a choice Catherine and I both have made. Before even meeting each other, we have made that choice. But what about I'm fine, boo. Like I get protein through
I'd
vegetables.
love to show you my muscles. You
Yeah,
can't
I'm
see them
pretty
through this,
fit.
but
Like,
I
what a
haven't got
Popeye.
all the right muscles in all the right places, but my arms are really strong. I could do,
What did Popeye eat?
yeah,
Spinach.
exactly. And it does make me laugh if I see one more person saying, I tried being a vegan for 5 years and it nearly killed me. It's like, well, you weren't doing it right then. Get over
Yeah.
yourself. If you're living in a Western country where you've got access to choices of food, You can be healthy with whatever diet you choose, but you can be unhealthy with whatever diet you choose.
There are many unhealthy vegans out there that eat, McDonald's French fries here in America are technically vegan.
Yeah,
Like Oreo cookies are vegan. Like you can be a unhealthy vegan if you want.
yeah. And you could be a really unhealthy meat eater if you want, and
Yeah.
a lot are.
Yeah. So do you have these like things in your mind you think are fact but actually aren't fact? My
And
biggest,
yeah,
yeah.
that's such a good point because we all have, every single one of us, I would take the diet thing. Every single client I work with, their animal, they sort of say they've got all these problems, but they're on a really healthy diet. And this isn't criticism because we're so brainwashed to think this is healthy and it's not. And all we have to do, whether it's for ourselves, for our animals, is we have to say, what are the results telling me? I don't need someone else to tell me when I put on weight. I can see it. I can feel it. I can't move the same. I don't have the same energy. And if I've put on weight, it is my fault. It wasn't my fault when I was a child. I didn't have any choice over my food. Um, I did give the stuff I didn't like to the dog, so that was really handy. But when now I'm an adult, it's my fault. And my fault, part of that could be that I haven't been educated properly. And in which case, if I'm looking in the mirror and thinking, I haven't got the energy, I know I need to stretch more, Brice.
Yeah.
You tell me, my daughter tells me, I know I need to stress more. I am not making it a priority. My bad. It's not Bryce's fault. It's not my daughter's fault. It's my fault. I haven't prioritized it. It hasn't got high enough for me. And next time I do my knees again, it will suddenly move right up my priority list. So,
That's a good point, Catherine, because I think when we actually start taking accountability for the little things in our lives, we will stop giving our power away to the bigger things in our lives. It
oh,
actually
yeah.
to take accountability. Like it feels good to apologize when you need to apologize. It feels good to say, you know what? That was my fault. I did this to myself, or I didn't stretch, or I've gained weight. It's my fault. Like that. It feels good to actually acknowledge that. It doesn't make you look like a weak person. I actually think people that are able to self-reflect quickly and say, my bad, I find them to be the most sexy people
Oh,
because
I've got a couple of friends that have been on the most health transformational journeys ever. And they are amazing. It's a bit like us, the whole point of this, are we trying to fix a broken system or not? But I've got people that I won't name their names because I haven't asked their permission. I am in awe of their willpower, their self-responsibility, because every single one of us will go off track in
yeah,
multiple areas of our life. It might be your marriage, it might be your finances, it might be what you're eating, it might be what you're drinking, it might be your exercise. There'll be something. We will all do it continually, and it's not a one and done. Just because you've learned it doesn't mean you won't fall off the bandwagon again. There is they're the people rather than anyone on the internet, rather than this. I'm going to learn from those people. They've done it
yeah,
themselves. They're still on the journey. It's transformed every area of their lives. In fact, there's a couple of people I'd love to get on here to share their journeys because those are my heroes. They're
yeah,
the
for
heroes that done
sure.
it. So it doesn't matter what your health state is now. Again, we slip so much into this shame. Oh, you're shaming people that are overweight, or you're shaming people that are underweight, because it's both. You can
Yeah,
be very unhealthy and very thin.
yeah.
It's not about, that it's nothing to do with shame. It's to do with like, do you want to really thrive and not be so programmable and not be in a fear state? Because when you have got some control over your life, or you know what to do if you need to do, then suddenly you can't be bullied so much.
You're taking your power back. The more you take accountability, the more you work on yourself, the more you start to value your own power. And that's again my biggest fear is people who claim to be awake want to sell their power to the white hats. They're giving their power away. That scares me because that's just another cabal. You take your power back.
Completely.
You allow somebody else to take care of you, then you've sold your power to them and you're allowing them to control you. Catherine, you have children. You took care of your children when they were in your house growing up. So what does that mean? Parents control their kids. Catherine got to set the rules. You have to be home at this time. think about growing up.
Exactly.
Because
We are
our parents
making
were providing for us.
decisions
Yeah,
before you've even got pregnant. You're making decisions that are going to affect your child for the rest of their life and affect their children if they're lucky enough to have them. So,
yeah.
but when we get things wrong, and my goodness, I look back about when I first got my first animals, I did what the vet told me. And now I look back and and when I went traveling when I was 21 years old around the world, I didn't think to ask what was in the vaccines. I just
Yeah,
thought, oh,
no,
I need this to
I
go to
did it.
Africa, we do it. So it's
Yeah.
not about shaming, it's about when you know better, you do better. And I am so grateful for the brave people that have stood up and shared their information with me and made me think about things that I'd probably never have thought of had they not been brave enough to talk about them. Because you cannot know everything. You really can't. Everyone's got their own little areas of expertise where they're really drawn to, they love, all of us watching here will have areas that we love researching or doing. Some people love gardening, some people love crocheting, some people love driving an old person's bus. Some people, love talking to someone on a health support line. We've all got areas that we're passionate about, and we don't all have to do everything. But what we do need to do is remain open-minded enough to sort of say, actually, do you know what? This person can give me some valuable information. This area of my life isn't working out for me. Perhaps I need to do something different.
And just the fact that someone can shine a light on there's possibly a different way to do something.
Yeah,
Let me entertain this for a moment and see if maybe I'm thinking something is fact that isn't fact, and maybe I can change this, and change this rut I'm in. I think we're not as evolved as we think we are.
oh no. And I love the fact that so many people now are talking about regaining these powers that we've all got, like telepathy,
Yeah.
all of us have got. And now people are like, oh, perhaps it's not. Perhaps I'm not going to laugh about people so much because there's stuff coming out that is actually showing that it is really possible. And I'd love to know now, it's not about like you can listen to the news much right. If we want to have, don't get me wrong, I find it, perhaps I shouldn't take it so lightly, but I find it hysterical looking at some of the Trump Musk things. I find it hysterical looking at our absolute idiot of a prime minister in the UK and not wanting to be in any of their positions myself, by the way, because I don't want that job.
Same.
And
Yeah.
no one would want me in the job before anyone else says that. I completely get that. But so you can have fun with these things, but when it's starting to get really stressful, or when you're handing your power away, that's when I think we need to step back and sort of say, it's like if you want a glass of wine when you're going out with your friends, but if you need several glasses every evening, then it's a problem. Same sort of analogy.
Oh yeah, and know that your problems and your attachments are going to be different from other people, the wine thing
Yeah,
included. I can't stand it when people are out there on their high horse thinking that alcohol should be illegal because they have a problem with alcohol.
yeah,
Not everybody has a problem with alcohol. Not everybody, some people can go out and just have a glass of wine with their friends. I'm one of those people. I maybe drink once every 6 months, I'll have a cocktail, and I can have one cocktail and be fine. I don't have a problem with it. So we
absolutely.
have to look at our own, but there are other things I have problems with. So we have to take accountability, not try to control. When we're trying to take sovereignty over ourselves, we can't take that and try to control other people with our own shit, basically. And I see that a lot happening in the truth world too, where people think that it's one way and that's it. And and if I have a problem with alcohol, then alcohol should be illegal.
Yeah, completely. And I think we can all, when you start looking back on some of the history we can get access to, we look at, like you brought up with the lyrics of the song, we see that none of these problems are new. They're just being played out in different ways for different times. And there's a lot of talk in the UK at the moment. And again, I'm laughing in a nervous, horrified laughter, not in a supportive one, where the digital passports, and now they've changed the name to a Brit Pass. So they failed during the pandemic trying to get everyone, because
So
enough
they're
people
just
did stand up.
they're
And so now
rebranding.
they're rebranding it and trying to get it in. And we're seeing this with all of our countries. I reckon there's no one watching this, with the illegal immigration issue that we've got in all of our countries. Whether how much it's planned is a different matter that I'm sure we've all got opinions on. So now in the UK, they're using that issue to bring in these passes because they're saying, shit, everyone's suddenly worried. Brilliant. It's worked brilliantly. We've caused enough chaos that everyone's worried about the immigration. So now we're going to use that fear point for people to bring in this control system. But I do think a lot of people are seeing through it now. So that might be wishful thinking, let's see. But I think it's getting harder and harder if we keep that open mind and question everything and are prepared to listen to different views that don't match our own, because there'll always be something you can glean from it.
Absolutely, 100%. They're
So let us
clever.
know in the comments, what have you seen in your communities or research you've been doing? What are you seeing that's working where people are not worrying about trying to fix a broken system, broken from our point of view, perfect system from the controller's point of view, or the parasites, as I like to call them? What are you seeing in your communities that is working? Who do you know that's really setting up something new and recreating something that does work, rather than whinging about something that doesn't? Because please do share, because we'd love to speak to people that are doing these things, and secondly, we all want to know about them.
Yeah, for sure. Shall we share just a tidbit of housekeeping about what's happening with YouTube, Catherine, and the
Oh,
AI?
please do, because this is something that you shared with me that I didn't know about. Although now you said it again, this is an example of me like, duh, how did I not see
So
it?
you guys know that Catherine and I get shadow banned a lot, and we're aware that we talk about controversial stuff. I think we both have tried to be really careful, because this is YouTube's house, YouTube's rules. We try to work around different words, all that kind of stuff. Well, the last day, I've heard from two different sources, and I think we've seen, like, we know they rip our videos off, they create different channels. Well, they're also using AI. So what's happening, you guys, is Catherine and I and other people as well, some normie channels too, not just us, especially when there's a lot of research involved in a hot topic. They will shadow ban us, voice copy our stuff, use AI to recreate our videos on a different channel that's not shadow banned, and the money's filtering back into YouTube.
Hmm.
So if you see any of our videos being pirated, basically that's what this is. Make sure you go to our channels and actually share our videos. Don't share the pirated videos, because that's theft. And I think you and I, Catherine, we were talking about, like, okay, they don't want to sing certain words. Fine. Again, YouTube's house, YouTube's rules. We can still get it. We can play the game and get around the words. But this is a level of bullshit. Like, this is not okay to rip off somebody's work and to create
People
two.
like Joe Dispenza, it's horrendous. If you look at how many people are ripping off and doing AI voice recitals of his meditations and stuff, it's
Yeah.
absolutely terrible.
So YouTube's getting paid for our hard work, and we're
Hmm.
not making any money. And so please be very conscientious of when you're watching YouTube channels, not just Catherine and me. It could be somebody else that's not even in the conspiratorial world, but just make sure you're watching from their channel. It's actually their channel you're watching from, and not a pirated channel. If you're going to share a video that you like of someone's, make sure it's theirs, not even just for Catherine and me, for anybody. That's what's fair. Like, give that person that did the hard work, that did the research, that spent the hours and hours editing, give them the view. I'm not even talking about Catherine and me, for us too, but for other people too. Like, that's another way that we can start the thing about their density is that one thing we have to accept, this is a polarized density, is polarized. So
Yeah.
the bad guys have just as much a right to be here as we do. And that's a hard truth that people need to accept. So knowing that they have a right to be here, we now have choices to make. We can either play their game, and Catherine and I do choose to play their game with the words with me
Yeah.
to on YouTube. But when it comes to pirated stuff, that's where it's kind of crossing a line. And so just make sure that you're making the right choice to really support the person, the content creator who did the work, the actual labor and the work, to put their stuff up. Because it does financially affect us. Catherine and I don't really make anything doing this at all.
No,
Um,
not
so
at all.
not
Yeah,
at
it
all.
costs us a lot
Somebody
more
else is.
than we make. And so many people have sent me copies of my videos on other channels from other channels, and those other channels have got like 10 times the views to 100 times the views, and we have, my little doggies are waking up and asking to go out. And so it is disheartening. And this is what I mean by an energy exchange. Everything we do is an energy exchange. We all know that if we support small local businesses, they're going to be able to keep going. And if we don't support them, they're going to close because they're not going to be able to keep going. And it's the same thing with things like this. If there's anything that resonates you, we really appreciate, that's why I hate doing it, but why people like us have to say, please just leave a comment. If it's a nice one, even better. But hey, that's your choice. Please do a thumbs up, a share, because the problem is you do need to play the game, because otherwise people don't see the content. And I think sometimes just having discussions where you haven't got answers, you're just asking questions, are probably the most important thing. Because as I said, a lot of the big podcasts that I'm seeing, they're telling people a lot of information. Some are amazing, but there can also be a lot of sort of really misleading information on there as well. So it's nice to support the small shops, the smaller channels, and that way we can all hopefully make the world a better place.
Amen. Just be aware. Knowledge is power. Knowledge protects.
I love it. So next week we will be back on Brice's channel, Esoteric Atlanta. We do these alternating coffee chats every week. And if any of you haven't seen my deprogrammed episode that I put up this week with Brice, please do go and watch it, because I think you're going to see completely different information that you really didn't know about Brice. And I think sometimes that's really, really important. So please go and watch that. I think you'll be really, really pleased with the information that was shared. Thanks, Brice.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.